Too many to name. I've written 36 novels now, but they're mostly crime stories and thrillers and mystery. The dark side of life I like writing about. At school I was very much into maths and science, but I also told stories. My mum says I told stories all the time. You know, I'd come home from school and say, maths was really interesting because halfway through the lesson an alien came in through the window and started eating the maths teacher from the toes upwards, and it was really good. And my mum would say, Malcolm, are you telling stories? So I've always told stories, but never thought of it as a career. I really only have three things, I think, when I start writing a new story. The theme of the story. What's the basic idea? I have an opening scene in my mind that would grab my attention if I were the reader. And I have the major characters. And that's all. I don't work a lot on a plot. I simply put my characters into that opening scene, knowing what the idea is about, and then try and think like my writers, try and become my characters, try and get inside the mind of the characters and work out what they would do under the situation they find themselves in. And then I go ahead, very much trying to get the characters to make the decisions. I always go into a new book thinking, I wonder if I'm any good at this, I wonder if I can do it. You know, I relearn everything every time I start a new story. I stay motivated while I'm writing because I take on the role of the characters. And so for me, it's a new exercise every time. I'm a 16-year-old girl called Jane, you know, and the next minute I'm a 13-year-old boy called Luke. And because as a writer I can go anywhere, be anyone, or do anything, that's motivation enough. It's that freedom to meet an alien, to be scared silly in the middle of a dark wood, or stumble upon a horrible chemical experiment that's gone wrong. Yes, I believe anyone can be a writer. I believe that we all have stories within us. You only have to listen to children who make up the most fantastic things. We're all naturally, I think, story writers. That doesn't mean I think everyone can get a book published. I think there's a big difference there. But nonetheless, I think we're all, us humans, we're full of stories. From fairy stories when we're very young through to autobiographies when we're old, we've all got stories within us. I think we should all be story writers. I think that the best way of learning how to write a story is to read stories and see how other people do it. That's very much how I learnt. Authors have all sorts of unusual and different backgrounds, and there's nothing common to all of those authors who we like reading about. Some of them have got English degrees and some have got hardly any schooling at all. So what is it that's common between them all? The love of reading. What helps me to write is enthusiasm and passion for the basic idea. So I always say to people who are themselves thinking of writing a story, write about something that gets you passionate. And it might be that you're really enthusiastic about something because you really love it. Or it could be the opposite, that you get really passionate about something because you're so annoyed by it. Yeah? It doesn't really matter as long as it's enough to get the passions going. What inspires me, I think, to be a writer is the love of seeing a young person pick up one of my books and really enjoy it. And I think, oh, it's not just me who likes these stories. I'm writing something of value to a young person. And that, to me, is just terrific. My background very much influences my writing because some say I have this really unusual background of being a scientist. Science is a great place. My background is a great place to get ideas because science is always changing. You know, it's the nature of science to make new things, to discover new things or to invent new things. So I do think that writers have a great responsibility on them, because people will remember those books. Young people reading my books will remember them for many, many years. That's one reason why I'm a writer. I really enjoy that impact you can have on a young reader. I think my books are dark and mysterious, and I like the idea that someone reads them because they're not quite sure what's happening. And I hope everything becomes clear later on. But there's a good deal of threat in many of my books, I think. And I like the idea of scaring someone silly whilst they're in a safe environment. You know, what can be safer than reading a book? The best things about being a writer are freedom, the ability to go anywhere, be anyone, and do anything as one of the characters in a story. And the fact that no one tells me, right, it's 8:30 in the morning, you've got to start work now. That's the biggest challenge, is to keep giving the reader a reason to turn over those pages in the middle before we get to the exciting end bit. I can get passionate, of course, about writing stories itself. I think it's a very important job we do, of writing stories, and I think that reading, particularly when young, has a huge impact on a young reader's life. So I get passionate about books, and I don't think schools do enough reading for pleasure. I describe myself as a professional daydreamer. I think it's a lovely way of describing any author, actually, not just me. But I don't sit and wait for inspiration. I work for inspiration. I think a lot of writers are like that. If I'm a 100-metre sprinter, I don't just go out onto the track and race 100 metres and do my personal best. I have a warm-up track, and I warm up the muscles first. A writer, like me, sits in front of a computer and writes something, which may not be very good, but it's my warm-up time. At the moment, I'm working on a new thriller series, and the first book I hope will be out in 2010. It'll almost certainly be called The Jordan Stryker Mysteries, and the first book will definitely be called Payback. The first book is set in and around the London area, and around the Thames estuary also. And it begins with an amazing terrorist explosion in which my main character is quite accidentally caught up and is fairly severely injured. He is repaired and has his body enhanced by modern medicine to the point that some might even call him bionic. And the series will be about this boy, Jordan Stryker, and I'm really excited by it. I think that all young people should be writers. I think all young people are writers. And therefore I really like this initiative because it encourages, through competition, encourages young people to sit down and use those story writing skills that they actually all have. It's daydreaming. I just want to say what fun it is. You know, I'm a writer because it's fun, because I enjoy it. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't do it.